Okay. Hello everyone. Um, it's a nice, relaxing Sunday, and I decided I'd finally get a Halloween video out there. Um, Today I won't be doing very much in terms of drawing, but I will be doing something and talking about things that are appropriate for the holiday. Um, so before I get into that, I want to get to talking about a bit of housekeeping, as it one calls it. So in my videos about um, part one and two about my new comics that I got back in San Francisco, oops, um, I had a little mishap with the second part of that video, during which I talked about the various things having to do with um, Gideon Falls specifically, and the art styles that I prefer over others in among from the comics that I had there in that video. So um, the the various art styles across all of those comics, from Die to Gideon Falls, World Tree, um, the Sacrificers, they all were very different. Um, and it seems out of all of them, the one that spoke to me the most was Andrea Sorrentino's art style, where here I've sketched out one part of the page layout where the artist Andrea Sorrentino employed this technique of well, not technique, but he chose to put the focal point, which is a stick that the main character holds in his hand, um, in a circular panel. So, and then all the panels are laid out surrounding this piece, all the subsequent panels, and um, the way I discussed in the second part, which that footage got lost. The way in which the artist chose to shade the the characters, the main character, and objects, and it's he used these hatch marks that were very um, pretty close together, but they sort of were scratchy in appearance, and I really liked how it didn't I liked how the shading wasn't just one single, like, blacked out piece. Like, here you could just have very geometric sort of slices of shading. It wouldn't have worked for the mood of Gideon Falls, and that's important to remember. And um, I wish that had made it into the video, because I was really passionately talking about this, and it was so exciting to me, because I don't see a lot of artists employing that style. That it's very um, unique to the artist. A lot of art is in comics these days. It doesn't really seem to stand out, it, and all of it is, some of it can be very similar and maybe one note, but the Sorrentino has managed to stand out with this unique style he employed for Gideon Falls. Um, and this was really interesting to see. Um, and I also here on the back of this page. Well, before I get into that, by the way, my I suppose you could call her my producer, but my sister, who is my only patron right now on Patreon, um, mentioned that during a conversation that it would have been so cool if the footage that had been lost was included in the video because she wanted to see why I had drawn such a perfect circle. I mean, it is not exactly perfect, but I practice this, you know. It's it's important for me as an artist to be able to draw fairly perfect circles. Um, but the explanation for that is, and let me go get the comic. So, let's see. So here, yeah, right here, you can see this sort of keyhole effect with the layout. And there, a piece of wood is being held up by the main character. He's rummaging through trash. And I just love that this layout is varied and it's not static, it's interesting. Uh, it's a very great use of color. That it's the color in this world is mostly washed out, but when you do see color, it's these bold reds that either indicate our main character here wearing a tartan red shirt, or to indicate another sort of focal point of the stick that he's holding, or actually I think the red here in the beginning indicates the sun setting, maybe. Not quite sure about that. Because otherwise he seems to be in sort of muddy, cloudy part of his city. Uh, but it seems for the most part that the artists and the colorists are using red to emphasize certain characters, certain plot points, or rather not plot points, but certain objects that are important to the main character, such as this nail. and maybe also characters of importance. And I think it's emphasizing the darkness of this world, and that seems entirely appropriate for Halloween, actually. So I highly recommend this comic for horror comic book fans out there. And yeah, I just found myself really enjoying mainly the panel layout. It wasn't very uniform and classic as it is here. Of a very a grid here, whereas some of these panels aren't are different sizes and different shapes, such as the circular one. Some of them go across two pages. You have a double page spread. It's just very unique, and I just really love it. I think I haven't really gotten into it. I read a bit of it, but I think World Tree is also considered a horror comic, sort of, I suppose, techno horror. I don't really get much of that in the beginning here in this book, but I think it's an interesting take considering the world we are living in currently. So that's another horror comic recommendation. Uh, don't really have any others to point out. There is Infidel, if you want to get into that. I read that a while ago. That is recommendation. Um, and I think that's it. Yeah. Infidel, World Tree, Gideon Falls. If there are any other recommendations you have, comment them. Leave a comment. Um, Much appreciated. I could use the recommendations. I haven't been reading a lot of comics lately. Uh, so just leave a recommendation down in the comments section. Um, and we'll move on from comic books. And I just want to get that housekeeping out of the way, because I felt that I hadn't addressed certain things that did come up in the video, and I feel that that's was to the detriment of my review of at least Gideon Falls. But I think I've mentioned all that I need to say. Yeah. I hope I can find the second issue or the rest of this run somewhere. Um, I bought this at Comics Experience, so maybe a comic book shop nearer to me has more the rest of this run. Um, okay, I'll set those aside. All right. So what else? I'll talk briefly about my previous Halloween artwork here. So, what happened with this was I decided not to finish it because I had splattered ink all over it and I didn't think I would be able to remove it and continue. Um, I mean, I did painted the eyes here, at least the irises, which are red. Um, I sort of cobbled together my design for this from the first movie's poster and The Curse of the Cat People, which is the second film. And I mashed those together. So the cat comes from the second movie's poster, um, and yeah, it was going well in the beginning. I liked the sketch that I had come up with, but yeah, I think I may continue with this. I'm not sure. It's a little late for Halloween for me to get going on this again, but I could pick it up at some point. It, why keep it otherwise, unless I'm going to get back to work on it? Um, I I don't know if I would recommend this film necessarily. I think it has its place in film history. It's it's important to to the world of horror films in terms of jump scares and building tension. But for me, I personally didn't like it very much. Um, but there are those of you out there who maybe will watch this video and consider this recommendation. So and maybe you'll go watch it and form your own opinion, and that's totally fine. Um, I I I think more power to you. If you find some value in it, then great. Um, yeah, I think I just did this because I really wanted to try to get back into watercolor. I mean, this black here is just thinned out acrylic, I think. And yeah, and so are the eyes. That's just crimson acrylic paint. But I just wanted to try something different, try something new, and think a bit like a designer, you know. And since I also love classic movie posters, I just felt this would be a great um, chance for me to exercise that skill and see if I can come up with an interesting design based on uh, classic movie poster. And sometimes, you know, you find a film where the poster is better than the film. Um, and this was the case. So anyway, there's that. Uh, going into now here, this big painting here I have. It's very bare bones right now. But it is the painting that I have been in the sort of planning stages for, er, like, since early this year, maybe sort of in the summer or spring to summer. Um, this was an old painting. just abstract piece that didn't really work. I had just been messing around with my oil paints, using my fingers to paint little shapes and things, and I used also some acrylic paint as well, and I didn't like it, so I put it away in a closet where I stored my paintings and other supplies, and sort of shoved it aside for a while until I figured I should uh, pull it back out, um, and try again. So I cut the canvas out off of the stretcher and glued it down to a piece of canvas. Um, and some of the glue hasn't really stuck onto this unprimed canvas here. So I think it's sort of failed and it's pulling away. I don't want to mess with that, but I just noticed that, so I'll just keep going with this. This painting, I initially painted it white to cover up the old paint, and then I couldn't really decide on what color I was going to paint it, so then I painted it this sort of clay orangey color, sort of the color of roof tiles. And I didn't like that, painted it blue because the photo reference I have here in my sketchbook was printed out blue, which was fine. I actually thought that would have been a very neat little stylistic choice to paint it blue. But then I printed out a reference image that was much better, more accurate to the film's colors. And this photo reference is just black and white, and I actually made my own paint because I haven't had a lot of money for a long time, and I just started a job, or I have a job now, but I haven't started it yet. I will soon, sometime, and that will allow me to buy more art supplies, such as paints and gesso and things like that. But at the time, I didn't really have much black left, and I also was running out of white, so I just decided to crush up charcoal, vine charcoal, and crush that and mix it with white and create my own paint. And it created this very grainy texture to the painting, which I had to sand down. Um, I had to sand it down with this. You can get this at Ace Hardware or Lowe's, even Walmart, I think. I just sanded it to remove some of that texture. I think once I get more paint and decide to continue with this painting, I'm going to put the first layer of paint on, which will be a very deep black. I think it'll be maybe an ivory black, maybe. or another shade of black, but it'll be very very black. And then I will paint that first layer on. Then I will go in and sand it again so it's as smooth as possible. Um, and then go from there. Uh, this reference photo is from a movie called The Innocents, which was released in 1961. The film stars Deborah Carr as Miss Giddens. She is the governess of two young children who are put into the care of their uncle, played by Michael Redgrave in a brief scene, uh, who works so much and doesn't know how to care for them, so he needs a governess and a maid to take care of them. He's away often. Um, so she cares for these children who seem to be traumatized by their parents' death uh, while their parents were traveling abroad or something. Um, and it follows them as they become they begin to increasingly exhibit this very odd behavior, and it leads Miss Giddens to believe that they are possessed. And Miss Giddens begins to hallucinate these ghostly figures, and uh, the maid doesn't believe her, and the children become frightened of her at one point, and it's very atmospheric. The film isn't scary like we would expect of films being released nowadays. Something like Saw or um, Friday the 13th. It's not a bloody, gory, gross film. It's very psychological. And that's the sort of horror that I like. I like psychological horror. Something that creates atmosphere and causes you to shiver and feel uneasy. That sort of slowly creeping danger, or you just feel that something is slightly off. Those types of horror films really grab my attention, and that's why I love this film so much, and that's why I chose to paint it. So here I have this, and it's going to be vertical. Um, I think that's perfect to highlight Deborah Carr's beautiful face. That parts of her face that we can see, of course. Um, and I think I want to get a better printout of this image, because on this sort of flimsy printer paper, it doesn't really show the highlights very well. I can't I can't see all the parts of her face that I need to see when I'm painting. So I'll probably print it out on photo paper later, and I'll keep both of the reference images so that I can work from them. I actually saved this image from a website which has these uh, screenshots of, I think, every moment in the movie. I can't remember the website's name. I will have to find the link and post it in the description. But it was very helpful for me to find the exact moment I wanted, because if you notice here in this, her pose is different her hands are splayed out a bit more because in this moment, in the beginning of the film, while the credits are rolling, she is praying. Um, and here she has her hands sort of clasped together. Here, her hands are moving. She's moving into this sort of motion. Um, and while I like this still, and I still get the perfect portrait Rembrandt triangle, I wanted something a bit more like this. Um, I don't really know why, but it just that this frame by frame, this appealed more to me than this moment. Um, I just I think that that'll work. Uh, Maybe here you have more of a variation in tones from light to dark, but I don't know. This works for me. Uh, so that'll be a great project to work on. Um, and the wonderful thing about my new job is I will have the weekends free. So while I have you here now, I will just say that my schedule will be Monday to Friday, um, be 6 hours, so I won't really have time to film videos during the week. But on the weekends, I will have some time to film videos. So my schedule will be moving to the weekends. I'm sure all of you will be fine with that. But I just wanted to make sure that you all knew about that. All right. So, going to set this aside and get down to point of reference for painting. This black is the sort of black I want. Um, on my painting. That kind of very deep, beautiful black. This is another painting I have stopped work on because I don't have black paint anymore. So there's that. I will resume work on these. I know I will. And they'll look great.